Welcome to episode 1 of the Survival Project. My name is Jonathan Healy. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get into it. The first episode will be a little bit about me, like why I want to make a podcast, why I've gone with the name The Survival Project, and more importantly, what I actually hope this podcast can become. So today, no guests, just yours truly spitting some bars. This podcast will be centered around health and chronic illness. Now, it's one thing that I strive for and one thing that I battle on a daily basis. And there are two things that I know I'm not alone in. My own battle is against Crohn's disease. I've had it since I was 9 years old and it's taken a lot from me. It's taken my career, it's taken my education, and physically, it's taken my large intestine, some of my small intestine, and also my rectum. And if I'm honest, that's only scratching the surface of what this disease has done to me. I'll dive into that a lot more later on, and I'm sure we'll touch on more of it in other episodes. I want to talk about what actually inspired me to start this podcast. And this next sentence is a little bit cringy, and you could say it's a little bit High School Musical dramatic. The actual inspiration for this podcast is you. Because if you're here listening to my words today, I can take an educated guess that you're going through your own health issues, your own battle for health, your own battle for survival. And what I want this podcast to do is to help you, and I want you to help others. My hope for this podcast can be summed up in this quote from American author Brene Brown. One day you will tell your story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide. That's why I say that you're the inspiration of this podcast. Your story, your lived experience. This podcast can become a platform for you to either teach or learn, to share and teach, or to listen and learn. The dictionary definition of survival is the state or fact of continuing to live or exist, typically in spite of an accident, ordeal, or difficult circumstances. There's no two ways about it. The battle for health is survival. And unfortunately, we live in a world that's filled with issues of health. There's not a person on this planet that has not been burdened by times of poor health. That's either personal experience or could be a family member or a close friend. Poor health can send us into uncharted territory. We're navigating without a map. It's not just the person experiencing it. Poor health is a complete ripple effect affecting all those around us. When I was first diagnosed in 2003, Crohn's was less common. At the time, I was actually told I was the youngest person ever diagnosed. Now, I was in Ireland, but on top of that, I've also spoken to two other people who got told they got told the same thing. Make us feel very important, Now, my claim to fame being that I was the youngest person ever diagnosed, my other claim for fame, I suppose, was that I was unresponsive to the medication, which only happens in a very, very small percentage of people. The consultants were stumped, and I just kept getting sicker. So as I said, uncharted territory, and the burden of finding that map was left to my parents because I was only 11 years old. So that was reading books, internet access was dial-up, and it wasn't the monster of information that it is today. Phones were for calls and texts, all the knowledge of mankind wasn't at our fingertips. Crohn's was less common, less people to reach out to, less people to ask about it, and then none my age that I knew of. So that was it. No access to someone else's story, no access to a survival guide. Over the years of battling it, my health deteriorated both physically and mentally together. It was a slog, but I've survived it and I've got the scars to prove it. Now, there was a few close calls, and there was a few times that I genuinely didn't want to survive it anymore, and that's the bare truth. But as the saying goes, couldn't kill a bad thing. So look, that's how we got the Survival Project. Survival, yeah, we touched on that, but project. So the dictionary defines a project as an individual or a collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim. That sums it up. I want this to be a collaborative enterprise, and the aim is making each other's lives easier. There is nothing like lived experience to guide one another. You've experienced it, you've lived it, you can either internalize it, or you can use your voice and you can give it to the world to help someone else. To quote the American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, to know that even one life has breathed it because you've lived, that is to have succeeded. Came across that quote on TikTok and it just hit home. It just sums up everything. Sums up what I want the spine and the soul of this podcast to be. Just had to reiterate that I got that from TikTok in case anyone thinks I'm diving into 18th century philosophy. Maybe someday I'll be that much of an intellectual. For now, it's TikTok and Instagram Reels. If you'd like to come and be a guest and share your story, please drop me a message on Instagram at Jonathan J. Healy, or else you can get me at the Survival Project Pod, or you can also drop me an email at thesurvivalproject.pod@gmail.com. I'll write the details in the caption if anyone wants to get them. When I first began thinking of a podcast, it started with my email interview series, IBD Insight. And I was actually, I was really surprised, and to be honest, I was delighted how many people are willing to take part and just share so openly. I started with a written series and intro because I know not everyone's comfortable speaking on camera, and I wanted to give a voice to anyone that actually wanted a chance to speak. The feedback was good, people enjoyed it, but when it's written like that, it can limit how far the voice can travel. Podcasts are the #1 outlet in the world, and at the moment, there's no better way to reach an audience. So here we go. Whether you're listening to this on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube or any of the socials, I would really appreciate it if you just shared any links, pop them up in your story. It will just really give it a chance to grow. The more growth, the more episodes I can do, and the better I'll get at this. My first guest in episode 2 would be my mother, Rita. She's the woman that's guided me through it all. As I was diagnosed at 11, the symptoms started when I was 9. Of course, the burden of that fell to my parents. So, of course, I'm the one experiencing it, but They had to put their lives on hold for me all the time. Whether that was minding me when I couldn't go to school, bringing me to hospital appointments, consultants, infusions, even things you wouldn't think about, like driving me to matches because I couldn't get on the bus with the lads in case I'd have an accident or soil myself. Like, you have an accident trapped on a bus, that's, trauma. It's happened. Word trauma and then laughing at the same sentence is a funny one, but I think laughing at my whole life has been the the best coping mechanism I could have developed. As unfunny as the subject is, the other side of it is the amount of money they had to spend to try and make me better. Like, they would have spent any amount of money to make my life easier, and they did, because being sick is expensive, and financially I would hate to know what they've spent on me. I know Dad says he'd be driving a brand new S-Class Merc every year. Mom calls me her emerald, not because I'm a gem, but because I've cost her as much as a mountain of them. Given all that, you understand why I want my mom to be the first guest. I do receive many messages from fathers and mothers of newly diagnosed children who are looking for advice. I can of course advise as a Crohn sufferer, but to put myself in the shoes of a parent, like, in a sense, thankfully, it's not something I can do. I can barely mind myself, never mind another human. We'll leave that job to an expert who'll be here in episode 2. If you've gotten this far, I really do appreciate you taking the time. I hope I can create something special here that will be a guide or, ease the burden that people feel. The lack of knowledge and the search for information. Hopefully this can be a place that can provide both. Give a platform to the people who are living it every day. The ones that are battling, they're learning, surviving. That's it in a nutshell. The Survival Project has started, so hopefully see you back for episode 2. As a thank you for joining me today on the Survival Project Maiden Voyage, I have a special 20% off discount code for all Shear the Hair products. The code is TSP20. Shear is the brand that I started when I was still hairdressing. The whole focus of it is hair health, so I can guarantee how good the stuff is. In times of poor health, it's often our hair that shows the first telltale signs, and health issues can lead to hair loss and hair breakage. There's no denying that our hair is a major part of our identity. When it looks good, we feel good, so when it suffers, we suffer. If you suffer with hair issues, it can really knock your confidence. It can just be another kick when you're already feeling down. And that's where the Shear the hair care accessories come in. Free Silk is naturally smooth, it's going to be frictionless and breathable. It reduces breakage, prevents split ends, and actually protects delicate or thinning hair. Whether that's tying your hair up with a silk scrunchie or nighttime protection with a mulberry silk bonnet or using a pillowcase. Traditional cotton pillowcases, they can pull, they can tug, and they can dehydrate the hair and also dehydrate the scalp. So they're going to exacerbate any existing issue and lead to more hair loss and more hair breakage. So you can use the code TSP20 for 20% off the entire range. That's on shearthehair.com. You can check out the range on the socials at shearthehair. All the details will be in the description.